This podcast, simply put, is to conceptualize experiences, taboo realities, and forthright topics that come up daily. The things I can speak on firsthand, I will. The things I cannot, I will explore with others who live in those truths. This podcast is not one of judgment. Rather, it serves as a pillar of self-truths, discovery, and resources. This is Frank Discourse.
Frankly, my dear, I don't give a fuck.
Look, ruthless crib on some stupid shit. To valet that Ruth Chris is some ruthless shit. I think too much TV is what ruins kids. When homosexual actresses they influences. We need community centers that teach the music biz. That way we learn to retain ownership on some Jewish shit. Don't take no handouts, you build it, it's more lucrative. And out of everything that I spoke, it's the truest.
Yo, this is Frank Discourse. Today we're gonna talk a little bit about money and property and ownership and the history of the bullshit. So, book that I read, The Color of Law. I believe it's also like a bestseller right now. But I recommend it for sure. Richard Rothstein, I hope I'm saying his name correct, The Color of Law. I'm recommending this to anybody that's especially interested in history like I am, as well as like understanding the significance in ownership of property and the history of why it's so important to minorities in this country and how hard it was to even attain it, and why there's such a problem and a strain on the concept of generational wealth in minorities. So the biggest thing that I took from this book is learning how the banks and insurance worked and like creditors. One of the things that stood out to me the most in this was, well, being military and knowing the history of coming back to a country where you fought a war and you're supposed to be entitled to the VA loan, and you don't get it. You put your life on the line for this country, and then you don't get it historically when it is entitled to you. When you try to utilize it, they tell you basically, no, you're not getting it. And then even if you are able to afford, like from the money that you save or anything, if you're able to afford to live in a certain area, due to the fact that you are a minority, specifically black, that's pretty much what's highlighted in this book. Due to the fact that you are black, you cannot live there because white people don't want you. I mean, it's something that's repeated in history. That's why redlining, white flight, and things of that nature are so big. And to define those things, redlining is specifically how insurance companies look at the value of an area. So basically, they structured it to where white people could only be in one area. They preserved a certain area of the city. To redline it was to pretty much only allow minorities to stay in one area, and once they did, you pretty much have a zone, and the lining of it shows where to make the higher insurance. It was considered the basically it was more at risk. Yeah, that's the word. It was more at risk of crime and like being a liability to insurers and banks and such. So they redlined. White flight was a concept where you had a white neighborhood, black people who could afford to leave urban areas, or like the city areas, more impoverished neighborhoods, or just the overpopulated areas. The ones that could afford, like middle class, that could leave and wanted to go to the white neighborhoods would pretty much try to go buy a property. And at that point, the house, because black people were so desperate to move away, they were more willing to pay higher prices. And once they moved in, realistically, the property value went up, but insurers told the white people, because black people were moving in, the property value was going down. So white people wound up moving out, more black people moved in, and then in reality the property value did go down because nobody was willing to insure those areas, and you have people who can't afford it going to one area, but now the city no longer wants to take care of the area because they allow the area to go down in value. So where you may be paying taxes for your streets to be clean, or to the concrete and the pavement and things of that nature to be upheld, it's no longer like that because the city at that time didn't care about the area due to the fact white people ain't there no more. That also goes into zoning for schools and just the different limitations that were put in place to pretty much still segregate a city and the people with classism, as well as racism, but just in an economic position. The main reason that I took so much interest in this is, well, largely because I'm interested in home ownership, and it went into grandfather clauses on houses that are already built. Back in the day, they had grandfather clauses, so pretty much if people were to sell the homes, or white people were to sell the homes to black people, they're not really getting the full value of the homes or the property. I don't want to get too much into this book because I still want y'all to read it, but largely it's just so eye-opening to be able to see like all the legal means that were taken to basically keep minorities in place or down. And also like the biggest thing with property is equity and being able to pass something of value along to your family. So that generational wealth concept, without being able to own the property, minorities have nothing to pass down. They're always renting, and they're putting money into the banks or into the insurance companies or into other white people's pockets, the people that built them, built the homes and things. It's just a systematic oppression. It's an ongoing thing. So I think that was the biggest things that I took from this book, was just the how significant it is now for people, for minorities or black people specifically, to be able to have the right to own, be able to have the means to own, and us being smart with our money and our ownership and why it's so significant. That was a big thing. I think one of the biggest things for me that made me start thinking more about this was honestly the death of Nipsey Hussle. Just in learning how it was so important for him to be able to own the rights to his music, and being able to own, like when he started doing his line with Puma, and being able to put back into his community, and just the significance of the black dollar circulating within our own community. That was like amazing to me, and it pushed me to start educating myself and giving myself the knowledge and tools needed as I get older to be able to have something to stand on and some security in what I'm spending my money that I work so hard to make on. I'm not spoon-fed or silver spoon-fed. So it's like trying to depend on somebody to give me something, or me going to work and depending on that to put into my livelihood, but realistically I'm not really like benefiting from it because it's not something that I own. I'm still putting the money that I worked for into somebody else's pocket. I'm making money for somebody else. So I spend my day investing myself into somebody else's dream, and then taking the fruit of what I made from fulfilling somebody else's dream and putting it into somebody else's pocket to live. That's no way to live. Like, just being able to get to a point where I'm keeping my money, I'm holding on to my money, and I'm investing it into myself to create my own security. Like that's the driving force for me, especially now that I just turned 30. We going into a whole new decade of life. We thinking got to be different. We can't keep doing the same thing that we've been doing in the 20s or in the last couple of years. I cannot spend my money on these temporary things. So I really just want to encourage people to get some background knowledge on this economy and how significant it is to own now that we have more means and the ability to own. And just briefly, we'll get into this at another time, but You're a Badass at Making Money, Jen Sincero. Oh, excuse me. I've been reading this a little bit more to figure out how to think about money a little bit differently so I can be smart in the means that I have to invest my money. Just to plug in some stuff, some of the people that I follow on Instagram, at the Black Startup, at the Black Affluence, and Black Startup Business. That's another page. One more. Let me look at my notes. Oh, Black Wealth Renaissance. Those are 4 of the pages that I follow at this point because I like to get little tidbits on how to invest, what it means, to be Black in America, and little hints on how to get ahead with my money, learning about other Black businesses to invest in or to learn how to start up a business, how to be able to network with other people that are trying to do the same things. I strongly suggest you look into those pages if you're on Instagram. Again, looking at the book, The Color of Law by Richard Rothstein. Get that knowledge, man, because knowledge is definitely power. And then, do great things with the knowledge that we get. Just apply it. That's pretty much it. Hit me up with the questions, comments, concerns, suggestions, anything like that. I'm down for learning, and I just want to be able to give back and continue to, put y'all in touch with some other stuff. Yeah. But that's the end of that. That's Frank Discourse.